The demonization myth in divorce and custody cases. There's a belief in divorce and custody cases that if you can poison the court's view of your spouse, make them appear dangerous, unstable, or morally suspect, you'll gain leverage and win. And here's the part people don't like admitting. That belief is often correct. Demonization in divorce and custody disputes works more often than it fails, especially in the early stages of a case, and especially when the targeted parent doesn't recognize what's happening or doesn't know how to neutralize it. Courts are human and risk-averse. If a court overreacts to an allegation, the harm is usually framed as temporary, restricted parent time, supervision, financial pressure for now. If a court underreacts and a child is later harmed, the consequences can be catastrophic. That asymmetry drives decision-making. So when stark allegations are made, particularly those invoking abuse, instability, or danger, courts often act first, err on the side of caution, and scrutinize later. That's not moral weakness, it's institutional risk management. And it's precisely why demonizing is such an effective tactic. And danger lies in the false comfort people take from the idea that demonization inevitably backfires. It doesn't. It only backfires when it is exposed, tested, and brought starkly into the evidentiary light. If it's not, when the accused spouse or parent stays silent, assumes the truth will speak for itself, or responds emotionally instead of procedurally and with evidence, the narrative legitimizes and hardens. Temporary measures become entrenched, and the court quietly reorganizes the case around the assumption that, in the absence of persuasive evidence to the contrary, something must be wrong. Over time, demonization can collapse, but collapse is not automatic. It requires disciplined resistance, early factual correction, documentation, record building, and a refusal to let labels substitute for proof. Without that, demonizing often succeeds, not because it's true, but because it goes unrefuted. And the costs are devastating. Children absorb the narrative. They learn that one parent is dangerous or defective, which teaches them that a part of themselves is defective too. Real abuse claims become harder to identify because the signal is diluted by exaggeration and strategic alarmism. None of this minimizes genuine abuse. Real abuse must be reported, documented, and addressed decisively, of course. But protective disclosure is concrete, specific, and anchored to events. Demonization relies on atmosphere, accumulation, and implication. Courts don't always distinguish the two cleanly, and pretending otherwise is naive. If your court isn't acknowledging the difference, call it out. The lesson here isn't that demonization never works. It's that it works best against people who don't recognize it early and don't counter it swiftly and correctly. Silence doesn't look like dignity. It looks like confirmation. Panic doesn't rebut falsehoods. It feeds them. The only reliable antidote is disciplined, factual, procedurally sound responses that force claims to stand or fall on the evidence rather than on fear and cheap accusations. Demonization isn't rare, unfortunately, and it isn't easily punished. It's effective, corrosive, and dangerous, and pretending otherwise leaves people unprepared for how custody cases are actually won and lost. Forewarned is forearmed.